right, folks, we're back here at Creation and Compost, and we have such a special episode today. Of course, if you're listening to this podcast, it is Good Friday, and I do hope you're having a Good Friday wherever you are. And what better way to celebrate Good Friday than with a good couple of people that mean so much to me and my family. I've got James and Missy Daigle here with us. Folks, I had to do that because Brianna was close by. I appreciate y'all being with us this week. Thank y'all.
We appreciate you calling us in, man. It's an honor. I really like it. Been listening to some of your podcasts, man. It's really cool. Some of the things you got going on, and we appreciate the fact that you even considered us, very much less call us. So we thank you for that. Hope we can just be a good influence in someone's life anyway.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I just felt like we were discriminating against our Cajun friends because we haven't had any authentic Cajuns on the show yet. And I said, we got to get some Louisiana folks on here. And of course, a Georgia girl as well, because the house was divided for a while, but I think y'all pretty much just go LSU these days, right?
Yeah, we just do what we got to do, LSU. Georgia's still around, but, that's all.
Well, I figured them winning the national championship, I might get a smile. I might get a go dogs out of Mississippi.
Yeah, you might get something like that.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, again, thank y'all for being with us. I know y'all carry such busy schedules. And I know that y'all have a lot of things going on. So I just figured we'd open it up and I just let you guys introduce yourselves. And, I'll share a little bit more about how we met so that people can get some context for our relationship. But I just figured y'all go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay. We are James and Missy Daigle, and I guess Matt's gonna tell how we met, but how James and I met. He was from Louisiana, I'm from Georgia, and being that this is a time of the Easter weekend, us giving our personal testimonies, I think is very important. And for me personally, I thought that I was saved when I was 9 years old. And I lived a really great life and made really great choices and did all the right things and had a very good head knowledge of who Christ was. But then when I met James, I had enough knowledge to know that my mom and dad would want me to be with someone who was in church. So even though he was not living right, neither was I had enough fortitude to ask him to come to church with me.
Come on, man, I was doing right.
And so we came to church, and we ended up getting married, and just 5 months after dating. And then he got saved the month before we got married. And the change that I saw in him made me know that that I wasn't right with God, and that I had not truly gotten my heart right with God. And so we were heading home from church, and I knew in that moment that if we had gotten in a car wreck or if anything had happened, that that we would be forever separated, that he would go to heaven and I would not. And so I asked him to pull the car over, and he opened the Word of God with me and prayed with me, and I accepted Christ at the age of 20. And fast forward 32 years later, we have completely surrendered to Christ and have been that way pretty much our whole married life. He let him tell his side of it, but he surrendered to preach at a very young age. And so that's kind of been our life.
Amen.
Awesome. You want me to go ahead now?
Absolutely, brother. I want to hear about Jesse James and his conversion here. So
yeah. Well, I'm from Louisiana, as you said earlier, Matt. I'm a Cajun, full-blooded. Just had to get away from the scene down in Louisiana when I was 19 years old. That just had to get away. So I had two places I could have run to. I could have went to Portland, Oregon, or I could have came to Snellville, Georgia. I went to Portland, Oregon, out of state in the stuff that I was involved in. So I decided to come this way. Unbeknownst to me, that was God and his plan for my life. So we came here, and shortly after, about, I guess, a month or two, met this sweet little thing. And here she comes up, riding up the road, and fell in love with her. She tells me it was the second day, but I believe it was the first day that we met. I told her that she was going to be my wife. We still argue about it today. She probably remembers better than I do, but anyhow, it wasn't very long that I knew that this was the woman that God had laid out for my life. At a particular time of my life, I did not know the Lord. I thought I did. I was sort of similar to Missy. I thought I got saved when I was 9 or 10 years old. Mom and dad both got saved in the same week, and seen all the hoopla and the excitement that they got, and everybody loving on them, got baptized and all this great stuff. So I figured, hey, I need to do the same thing. Well, it wasn't until I was 19 years old, after I met my wife, that I realized my need for salvation, that I was going to bust hell wide open one day. And so our life, after we met, 6 months later, we were married, and we got saved within a couple of months of each other. And just life has not been the same. I get super emotional about what God done, the transformation in my life, because I know the road that I was going down. And I know that I've been saved for 33 years now, but I still can't get over the simple fact that God had a purpose for me in my life. And it was only until the time of salvation that I actually realized it. And yeah, life has been just one great blessing, fulfilling the purpose, doing what God's asked us to do after another, and we're just thankful for him, what he's done in our life.
Man, well, listen, I appreciate y'all sharing that. You know, a lot of folks, including myself, when God started dealing with me years ago, I kept using the excuse, well, you know, I don't have any Christian education background. I grew up in secular schools. I don't know the Bible well enough. You know, I don't understand this and that. And it's just amazing. Like, you know, Missy was talking about, like, you know, she felt like she lived a good life to where she was making good choices. And then, you know, you were even admitting, you know, that you were going to bust hell wide open. Me, I grew up in the church, and, you know, I accepted Christ when I was 9 years old. But it really wasn't until I was in my early 20s until I truly believed that that decision was solidified. You know, there were convictions in my life as a teenager, but as far as calling out to God and knowing that I needed him because of the things that you know, those decisions that I felt like I had not made, I really feel like this week, this conversation we're having, you know, a lot of folks who don't go to church on a regular basis, they will go to church on Easter Sunday. They will go on Christmas or the week of Christmas. But this week should be the most joyous week for Christians. And it should be something that, you know, even non-believers, they acknowledge there's something special about this. And the testimonies that you just shared are apparent as to why we should be the main cheerleaders, so to speak. We should be the main people out there proclaiming what this holiday, what this weekend's all about. Not just this weekend, but what this week is all about, really.
Correct.
You know, on our podcast, we've recently dealt with some pretty big topics. A few weeks ago, we talked. I had a young lady who's a senior at our high school that has a very strong pro-life stance that she's taken. She has started some ministry as a senior, where she's been raising money for a pregnancy center here in Bedford County. And then we had one of our Bible teachers come on, who his passion is to teach about the sanctity of life and why it's so important. And we had to split that into 2 parts. And then, of course, we've had some other people share testimonies. But everything comes down to, no matter what our topic is, every person that has shared is a believer in Jesus Christ. And that's what we all have in common. And I want people that watch this who are unbelievers, I truly want them to feel like we are just people that are being real. Like we've not, you know, we kind of laid out a general outline of questions as far as things to consider, but we have no formal script here. You know, as we're talking, we're just sharing what the Lord has done in our lives. And to give people a little bit of context of how we got to meet, you know, I know that while we were serving at Gospel Light in Winder several years ago, I know that our church came and visited the church that you guys were at there in Monroe, and we spent a Sunday worshiping with you guys, and got to know you a little bit. Probably got to know Missy a little bit better because she was in the nursery that Sunday. We still got a chance to talk with you guys. Of course, your boys were tiny then, which is so crazy to think of now that Nathaniel's graduated and Kyler's about to graduate.
Right.
But of course, you guys came over and joined Gospel Light, and we got to serve there for 2 years together. And of course, our friendship has not ended. I mean, to me, even though we don't see each other on a regular basis, you guys letting us into your home back when we were relocating to North Carolina, the fact that you guys offered, and then the fact that it felt so natural for us to be like, well, if you think you'll have us, I truly believe it was just something so much sweeter than just a general friendship. I mean, it really felt as though we became family, and that's how we look at you guys. And we definitely, it's just a very special relationship. I tell Brianna, one of the top 5 places I love to go is to your house, because that's where I truly feel comfortable. It's not the house, but it's the company that's there. And that's just something that, as we get into this, I truly want people to see how God, when he calls somebody into something, or when he starts working in your life, he puts those special people into your life that are going to allow you to grow, to feel nurtured, to feel safe. And those are things that we all want to feel, whether we're believers or non-believers. We all want those basic things. So to kind of avoid me just dominating the conversation, I want to just kind of focus on, as far as when you were called to preach, okay? Could you maybe just kind of share with people kind of what that process was like, based on like what you mentioned when you were younger, you knew you weren't right with the Lord. You knew you weren't saved. About that transformation, just how it came about, things in your life that kind of started to change. And then I'd like for Missy to do the same thing, just kind of in some of the things she started serving in terms of either being a pastor's wife or being a teacher. So y'all can just kind of one after another do that.
Definitely will. Well, when I was 19 years old, we were living here in Georgia, and I had an accident on a job which caused me to be bedridden for a while. So we went back to Louisiana. That's where all my contacts and things were. And of course, we want to be in church. We hadn't long been saved, so we want to serve. We want to be involved in a church somewhere. So we went to a church there that my parents were actually going to. And what happened when we got there, what really got my attention was this. It's very similar in all churches. It doesn't matter where you go, you find it. We went to that church for almost 3.5, 4 weeks at least. Went there every Sunday night, every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night. We was in service, and we were finally there about 4 weeks, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it was a Sunday evening. Before we get out of the car, I looked at my wife and I said, if no one shakes my hand, if no one in this church says hey to me, other than my mom and my dad, this will be the last time we walk in the doorsteps of this church. And you remember earlier, I told you I'm a Cajun. When Cajun makes up his mind, it's done. And so we sit down, we sitting there doing what we always do. I'm gonna talk to everybody I can, but we're young, and music starts playing, and choir gets up there to get ready to sing. And so I looked at her, and I guess this will be our last time we hear this guy preach. And about that time, a mentor of mine, his name is Tim Borrell. He tapped me on my shoulder. I'm sitting in the center aisle up against the edge of the pew. He tapped me on my shoulder. He said, scoot over, I'm going to sit with you. And from that moment on, we had someone that poured their life into us. He became a mentor to us, became a friend to us. And seeing the young couple just got saved months ago, was trying to do right, won't do right, just don't know how. And he just became a real good friend, he and his wife. And it really, I have to give a lot of credit to him, because he was just one of those kind of guys that won't leave you alone. He just poured into us.
He's very genuine.
Very real, and it just taught me something. It was about 3 weeks after he came to me, I said to myself, why was it I wanted to leave this church? I wasn't going to be in that church because no one was talking to me. As I'm paying attention for the next 3 or 4 weeks, it's not just me that no one's talking to. It's no one. They just come in, sit. You got a little small people here and there talking, but no one's going around talking to each person. So I went to the preacher. I didn't ask permission. I just went to the preacher who didn't talk to me. I told him, I said, the problem we have here is no one is being talked to. Hands are not being shook. People walk in this door, they don't feel welcome. And from that time on, you walked in that door, I was right in your face. I shook your hand, I hugged your neck. I made sure you felt welcome. And I seen the impact of that it had in people. And it was at that moment, I guess at that moment, I started understanding that there's more of a purpose in my life rather than just come and sit in this pew. That God can use someone like me to impact someone else. That's got nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with the fact that God can take anything and anyone and really be an influence in someone else's life. And so that probably was the beginning of what I would say I would consider the beginning of my ministry. It was 2 years later, a friend of mine, Richard Simmons, not the Richard Simmons that you're thinking about, that does all the exercising. Richard, we loved each other, man. We practiced lessons together. We preached at each other. It was in September of '92. I realized that God was doing more than just want me to be an impact at the front door and teaching the young kids and working this and that, because we were doing everything. He said, "I'm going to surrender my life." And so it was in September of '92. Richard and I, the same night, surrendered our lives to the ministry and said, "God, you take what you want to do with this thing. Whatever you want to do, you do it." And so it's been a heck of a road since, I promise you.
Well, before Missy shares, her part, I just, I can definitely vouch for that in terms of the nature that you have. You're very much I don't want to say in your face, you're very much an extrovert when it comes to showing people that affection. So much so that, it's really funny watching. I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this to you. I can now because we're from a distance. Like I never minded hugging you because until the day my dad passed away, I was 25 when I lost my dad. We always walked up to each other. I'd hug him, kiss him on the cheek. That's how we always greeted each other. But it was humorous for a long time serving with you in church to watch you go up and hug someone, and they may not necessarily have reciprocated that hug, but it was really funny watching them kind of tense up at first, but they would smile and they would their demeanor would soften so quickly because I truly believe they saw how genuine you were, that you weren't just, it wasn't show. You were genuinely showing, I love you, even though I don't know you. And I'm sitting here thinking, what better way to represent how Jesus treats us,
Right.
How he reaches out to us like that and just embraces us. So, kind of a little bit of humor there in terms of, but honestly, it really is genuine. And so
Along them lines, just remembered there's a guy named Charlie here in town. He was at our church when we pastored here in town. And huge. He's 6'7". He may be closer to 7 foot. He's just a big old guy. At the time, he was even much bigger than he is now. He's lost a lot of weight. Big old guy, just huge. And him and his wife started visiting. The second time they came, his wife's kind of like, "Hey, hug anybody." And I decided I'm gonna reach over and give this big old boy a hug. And I'm talking about stiff as a board. Looked down his nose at me, didn't smile, just looked at me. I gave him a big old tight hug. Of course, it was around his chest because he's so tall. And today, Charlie runs across the church to come find me to get a hug.
How about that? That's so cool.
That's pretty cool.
Even a big old guy like that can become just a big old teddy bear, big giant go into that. So again, just shows how God works. So Missy?
Okay. Well, I feel like I guess my purpose, it's kind of all started with the fact that I always wanted to be a mama, and God had other plans. It's gonna be hard for me. Sorry.
No, you take your time.
We were very blessed to have each other, but it was a struggle for me because I really wanted to have a family, and we had multiple miscarriages, and we had a lot of medical issues between the both of us, and had to have surgery and just all kind of things. And so I kind of became the mama at the church, and every little child at the church, like I looked like Mother Hen, I guess, they would all come and sit with me on the front row at church, and just everybody just always loved me, and I loved that I was able to give love to other people's kids. And I was a surgical tech by trade, had gone to school to do that, and loved that. But I also loved teaching, but I only ever taught at that time in the church setting. And so when James and I had been married 12 years, and after many miscarriages, God did allow for us to have Nathaniel. And so when that, when God blessed us with him, I purposed that I wasn't going back to work, that I was going to be a mama. He placed that in me, and that's what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to be a mama. And so again, fast forward a little bit, other things happened. Like you said, we could write a book. There's lots of things, but we had an addition to our family through adoption. When our nephew was only 11 months old, James's sister was his mama, and she got killed in a car wreck. And so we were blessed by being able to adopt Kyler. And so then we had 2 little boys, and so that was huge. And of course our oldest, at this time, he wasn't like currently in our home. So, but our oldest son, who very, very first came to us, was Daniel, and I don't mean to forget about him, so forgive me for that. But and he's a vital part of who we are and how everything about us. So, but when talking about the other 2 little ones in that particular stage of our life, I definitely was like, I'm not going back to work. And I didn't know what I was going to do, though. I wanted to be with my boys. And due to some changes in our church at the time, we were going to a church that actually had a preschool. And so God opened that door for me and allowed me to start teaching preschool. I never in my wildest dream would have thought about being a teacher, honestly. But through that, and I was able to be on their schedule, be with them, still be the mama. And God just continued to open door after door for me and placed me in the, I don't know if everybody that listens to your podcast is aware, but in Walton County, we have something called CLC, which is Christian Learning Center. And we have the opportunity to, you have to have permission through your parents, and you have to fill out all the right paperwork, but you were able to be taught an accredited class on Christianity in the middle of a school day. And it just shocked me when my boys came home and told me all about that. And I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to get involved. And so I just started praying. And once again, God opened a door, and I was able to do that. And so I loved what I did for 14 years working in surgery, but ultimately I feel that the purpose that God had for me was to be a teacher, was to be influential in young people's lives. And my first year teaching CLC, I was able, and this still astounds me, but I was able to help 75 students come to know Jesus this first year. And I need to sit down with my notebook and go back and count them all up so that I could give a definite count, because I don't know that off the top of my head. But the impact that not just me, it's God through me, it's not me, but that the class has been able to have in our school systems is just phenomenal. And it's something that I'm forever grateful for. And he's allowed me now, once again, to transition, and I'm actually in Walton County school systems. I'm a parapro now at Carver, and once again, I'm still able to, my circle of influence has broadened even more, and I'm able to be impactful in teachers' lives and in more students' lives. And I completely give God the credit for that. I know that when my heart was burdened, when I was just a very young wife, to be a mother, you know, kind of like he told Abraham that he was going to be the father of many nations. I feel like I'm the mother of many nations. I've got lots of little ones all over the place that come up to me all over the world. Honestly, we go to different states and people that I have had the opportunity to impact, and it just kind of blows me away. And I'm grateful that God allowed me to be in a position where I've been able to help point others to him. I don't take any credit for that. That is all God. And I'm just grateful that he's allowed that in our life.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's so cool to see everything come full circle, because, you know, you shared about, you know, having difficulties in, you know, being able to, you know, have a child, but then at the, you know, I'm not saying at the end of this, but, you know, several years later, many years later, as you mentioned, I'm not going to use the number you used. Many years later, you're able to take what started as a struggle, and it actually has become a strength in turn. You know, it's something positive. And that's what I think is so cool, is like, you know, the things that we experience that are difficulties, or the endurance test. You know, I've heard many pastors say that your spiritual journey is not a sprint, it's definitely a marathon. And, you know, I believe that's exactly what Paul talks about when he talks about fighting the good fight and finishing the race. It's not like a 40-meter dash. We're talking about a lifetime of serving God and being able to see, like you mentioned, it's not what we do, it's what he does through us. Because nothing I say on this podcast or in my class or anything that has anything to do with Jesus Christ came from Matt Bracewell. It all is from his word that I'm just privileged to share with others. And that's the genuine nature that I wanted people to see by hearing you speak, because of the encouragement that you guys have been to us. You know, I really truly believe that those relationships are things that obviously they mean something to us, but I want other people in my circles, whether they be in Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, or the global students that I teach, I want them to know that the teacher they have today is not the same person yesterday, or a year ago, or 10 years ago, or 25 years ago. Because if you'd have told me I was going to be a school teacher 22 years ago when I graduated, I'd have looked at you and said, yeah, right, I'll probably be married and have 4 kids too. But, you know, that's just, again, God has a sense of humor.
He does, right.
But, you know, again, the fact that you've been able to do that in Christian and in secular education is remarkable, because I'm pretty sure, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the kids that you're actually in the classroom with now, have you had some of those in CLC before?
A lot of them, yeah.
So it's really cool to, you know, I'm sure it's probably really cool to have that crossover to where they now see you in a different capacity, but they still know who you are.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and they know what you stand for. And, you know, having worked in Walton County for 9 years, I have to say, one thing that I do appreciate about their school system is just how supportive that they have been of things like CLC and FCA and a lot of these different programs. You know, we had a couple weeks ago, we had Jeff Hughes, who's, you know, involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And, you know, I know CLC, my goodness, when I was there, kids just could not wait to get on that van and go over to the one in Loganville, you know, where I was. But so I know they're doing great things, and it's a great ministry. As far as, you know, James, share a little bit about with your business, like, you know, just kind of tell people a little bit about what you've done for many years, and just maybe some of the relationships or some of the opportunities you've had to minister from places other than behind a pulpit.
Definitely. Yeah, it's been a little over 8 years now. I decided to get out of the working for corporate America, I guess you would say, and decided to step in into doing what I like to do. I've been in construction all my life, so I decided to start my own business. I've got a smaller business, no doubt. Just do remodels, additions, and repairs of houses, do whatever needs to be done. And it's allowed me, it's opened the door up for homes that I normally wouldn't be in. Now, granted, I don't do any advertising. Most people that call me in to do work or ask me to come do work for me, someone that I know one shape, form, or the other. And that was the case for the first year or two, but they have friends that they recommend to. So it's stretched out where I'm meeting new people, able to minister. I've been able to actually, one young lady, it's been about 4 years ago. She was just struggling. I mean, just everything in the world. Husband's decided to leave while I'm getting the work done and everything else. Been able to minister to her and just share with her that God's got this thing in control. Everything's going to be all right. And it was probably 3 or 4 months later, I get a phone call for some more work. Didn't expect to even go back there and split up. The husband called me and said, I want to know if you can come and do some other work for me. So I go, and he approaches me and says, man, whatever you said to my wife, she just shared with me, and I got to come back, and we got to get this thing together. It wasn't anything that I said indirect. I just was straightforward and honest. And so he was able to ask some questions, and I was able to do a little bit of counseling there, no doubt. But to be able to see the folks that's been influenced by some of the work that I've done, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I do it with integrity, I do it with honesty. And because of that, we've seen so many people that have come and visit the church just because of the work or the ethic, the attitude that I have with them. And it's really been awesome to see how God uses that. I try not to be very pointed. I try not to go through as someone that I know that may not be a Christian or may not have a belief system that I would have, because I'm in a formal setting of a work relationship, so I don't want to create a problem there. But it's been opened up so much for me to be able to do a lot of counseling. I have to say that I've not led anyone to Christ that I've worked with, but I have definitely been able to counsel a lot using scripture and doing things. And it's been a big blessing what God has done for us with that particular business. And it's allowed me to be able to stretch out a little further. You mentioned not behind the pulpit, but because of that, I was able to be on staff at the church that we're at now. And I have been for about 1.5 years. I'm not with them now currently, but I was able to go, and the work that I do, just go and maintain the building and be on staff and have a little bit more of an influence with, and be able to see my clientele move even further. So it's really been a blessing. Yeah, and we just done so much. And now, because of the work that I do and the type of work I do, I've led so many mission trips. We got another one coming up this week coming, and just doing a lot of construction things. So it's really been awesome how God has used that particular experience in my life. Been awesome.
Well, and I know that, at the beginning we joked about, we're definitely, anytime we get together, we're going to have our coffee. That's it. That's definitely one of the you know, I think we've had so many good conversations around a cup of coffee, whether, you know, whether it be at your house or when you guys would come visit us in North Carolina when we were there. But you're talking about people reaching out and your circle expanding. When we moved, you know, 3 hours away from you guys, the only person we wanted to come do any work on our house was you. We were like, hey, look, I know it's a little bit of a ride, but we'll pay for your gas. We'll do whatever we need to do. But you know, I kind of want to jump from what you just talked about, because obviously working in home improvement and things, but you also have had things like, you know, cooking ministries. Like when we were at Gospel Light, that was something we always looked forward to, were those Wednesday night meals, because not only was it affordable for a family at that time, I think we were at 5, but at the same time, just the conversation, the communion that you'd have with people was just so, it was just so informal, yet it was so powerful. And those are kind of things that, like, I really firmly believe that was, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was one of your ideas to get that going. And it was a huge outreach, and people loved going, and so much that people wanted to get involved. And I know you did most of the cooking, a lot of the preparation. People look forward to that, you know, and just little simple things like that, you know, like it's just realizing that it's not about the way you do it. It's just the fact that you're doing something to show people you care. And that's always, for me, that's always been very evident, because we did live with you guys for about 3.5 months. And then of course, y'all were gracious enough to let Brianna sack out as we had moved to North Carolina, but she was still commuting. And, you know, y'all didn't, I don't guess y'all saw each other a whole lot, but the fact that y'all were willing to still open up the home, and when we visited, just the people that just pop in, like you didn't even expect people to come, those people are going to show up. And it's amazing because they act like, well, I don't mean this in a derogatory way. They act like they live there, but like they show up, but they feel just like I was mentioning a little bit ago. They feel like they're at home. And that's the environment, no matter where you guys are, that's the environment y'all create. And I just really want people that hear this episode, I want them to know that what they're getting right now is exactly, this is who you guys are. And this is no show. I mean, these are the Daigles, and that's why I wanted you guys here.
You know, we think back on that lines. I guess it's a Cajun thing in me. Is we've always, the larger the crowd, the better. We don't cook a small pot of anything. It's just gotta be. She gets on to me all the time. Why are you cooking so much? Well, you know,
You never know who might show up.
You never know who'll show up, but it's something that's in us. But I believe that goes a little further, and it's, again, you know, it would seem like there's a patting of our back, but it's not. It's God. You know, there's certain gifts of the Spirit that God gives, and one of those gifts is a gift of hospitality. God has used the experience and the upbringing, the culture that she and I both have been in, and allowed it to combine and given us the spirit or the gift of hospitality. And it just comes natural. I mean, it's just the way we are. We're having small groups with us on Sunday nights now. And so here I am trying to teach the book of Revelation. So that's so much fun. We're doing this at church in a small group setting. Well, I know there's going to be 1,001 questions that come up. And in 45 minutes every Wednesday night, there's not enough time to answer these questions. So what does James do? Hey, why don't y'all just come to the house every Sunday night at 6:30? And we've got 46 in our group.
Wow. And he hasn't come to the house.
Yeah, so you know, that's just something that comes natural. I still remember my wife's face 3 weeks ago. Like, oh my gosh. So
I love them coming.
We have 46 other people in our home on Sunday nights, every Sunday night. So it's just what we do.
I'm glad about it.
Well,
and I'm sure that Dot, I'm sure she would love
She
that.
loves it.
Oh, I'm sure. Plenty of fresh meat, you know, to go with.
To lick on.
Yeah.
Have plenty of sugar to give.
I'm telling you.
Well, I tell you, you know, obviously we could talk and talk and talk, and, you know, we could continue, you know, down a lane where we're telling stories. And of course, you know, James and I would probably insinuate that we wanted to watch Lonesome Dove, and both of our wives.
Tyler said that before he stepped away.
That is hilarious. So, but you know, it's so funny because just something as simple as that, like I said, we've talked about it for so many years, but we've never actually watched it together. Eventually,
we will.
Even if we have to do it virtually.
You're right.
That might be the next time we meet. We'll be like, all right, guys, we've got a movie session, you know, coming
That's
up
right.
next weekend.
We got the screen ready. We're gonna watch it.
Let's talk about why this is not a Christian movie, but at the same time, we're gonna really enjoy watching it and saying a lot of the catch lines. And but anyway,
Definitely.
well,
Cool.
listen, obviously, like I said, we could talk all night, and you know, I just want to thank you guys for the authentic nature that you have in all of the ministry that you do, because even though we don't live next to each other or we don't cohabit, you know, with the on the bottom floor of your home, we again are very, very appreciative for the time that you, again, I know you were opening your home in a way to where you were trying to help us out as we were transitioning, but it was truly an investment into not just mine and Brianna's lives, but also our kids. Now, I know we didn't have merit when we were with you guys, but my 3 boys, they ran up here because when they heard it was your names, they wanted to make sure that they saw you guys. And you remember Griffin was just a little bit, I mean, he had just turned 1 when we moved over there. So the fact that we've been able to keep that relationship from afar, you know, that's an eternal imprint that y'all have made. And I just want to thank you for that investment that y'all have made, not just to the thousands or even more people throughout your lives, but to us. I just want to thank you. And I want you to know that we sincerely appreciate and love you guys. And, you know, definitely wish we were closer. But as you mentioned, when God starts giving you opportunities and he calls and says, you know, I want you to do this, or he opens those doors anyways. It's not an audible voice, but you know, you go with the opportunity and just say, Lord, I'm gonna let you take the reins. So thank y'all for modeling that for us. We appreciate you guys.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you, and I tell you, I love you, your kids. I love you and your wife. And, you know, just in a joking manner, you know, we really just love your kids. You know, you can send them over here and y'all can step there and we'd be all right. You know that. So but,
I was really surprised that didn't come out sooner. I
was wanting to say it earlier when you was all sentimental. I said, no, I'm not gonna break that up real fast. But you know, we do love you guys, man. I mean, it's awesome. You know, I remember meeting you guys at Harvest when you guys came to that particular service. And we even talked about you guys. Didn't remember your names hardly because we just met you. But I told Missy, I said, that is a sweet couple that I really see some great stuff happening in their life. And lo and behold, it wasn't just about 3 years later, maybe 4, when we were actually able to worship together and just begin to build that relationship. I mean it with no regrets, no apologies, brother. We love you guys. We do. We love you guys a lot. And cool. Also, the Lord's been on my heart the last couple of days, and I'm blaming you for this. I guess it's been about 3 years ago. I started not really a podcast, and I started a little video blog that I started doing. It was called Real Encouragement, and I did it for, 5 or 6 sessions, and just something to just be real, just encourage people, maybe not with particular scripture, but just encouraging people. Everything's going to be fine. They got all this story going. And I did 5 or 6 of those. And I guess about 1.5 years ago, I've gotten a little bit of conviction. Someone asked me about it. It might have been you. I'm not sure. And so I got to looking at them and went over the videos and stuff. But the last couple of days, watching some of your blogs and listening to some of your stuff you're doing, you have encouraged me that I'm really trusting and praying that I think I'm going to try to get that started again. So get tired of me in the next couple of weeks because I'm probably going to have to ask you to help me get it going. And so just be praying for us, but that's your fault. So if it flops, it's your fault. If it goes well, it's your fault. But anyhow, and we do love you guys. And if Brianna's there, Brianna, we love you, sweetheart. And we look forward to seeing y'all soon.
I love y'all too.
Yeah, well, listen, we'll do it. You know, first and foremost, I just want you to know I always enjoyed your videos. It really is. I mean, that's what people don't realize is like, you know, I'm not pretending to be anything that I'm not. I'm just talking to people because, you know, Brett, I blame my dad because when I was about 4 years old, my dad used to send me up to every old man, like old farmer that he knew, but he would make me go start a conversation with him. He'd say, son, I want you to go up to Mr. Harold. I want you to introduce yourself, stick your hand out, shake his hand, and I want you to ask him how he's been doing. And then I'd say, well, what do I say after that? Yeah, I'm like 4 years old, 5, and he says, just talk to him. So I know there were probably a lot of times where I'm standing here, hand out, shake his hand. He's like, well, hey, little buddy, how, you know, and it's all these different men. And I'm just digging, trying to find things. I mean, I can't even read yet, you know, but that was just something that I truly believe that investing, you know, listening to people share what God has done in their lives. And like I said, I made a list of about 25 or 30 people, and y'all were very much near the top. I don't tell everybody that. I know it probably seems like that, but y'all sincerely were one of the first people I jotted down because I said, I just want people to have an opportunity to hear friends conversate about things that we share in common. But that similarity is what brought us to the place in our lives where we feel like we're the most fulfilled, and that is serving the Lord. So I will be absolutely happy to do anything I can, not saying that I'm, you know, an expert. Brianna got really aggravated with me when I first started this thing because I was having to learn so much new technology that I was literally staying up till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning just trying to figure out, because when I get something on my heart, I truly want to give it everything I've got, and I want it to be good. I want it to be good quality. And I go back and listen to a few of the things that we've done, and I'm like, I could have done this, I could have fixed that, you know. But again, it's just learning. But what I care about mostly is not it being perfect. I care about getting those Facebook messages, those emails, even when they're few and far between, and somebody saying, you know, that guest you had on last week, when he said that he knew he got called into sports ministry, or he got called, or she got called into this, or she made this decision to serve in this capacity, that's what I care about. And it goes back to the whole, you know, all the parables of the 99 versus the 1 sheep, you know, or the 99 coins versus the whatever it is, trying to reach everybody or as many people as you can. So I appreciate that encouragement. We'll be praying for, you know, you guys, for you to be able to get that started up. And like I said, anything that I, or, you know, if I have to elicit help with that, I'll be happy to do whatever we can, because we're a team, and we're obviously certain, you know, we're playing on the same team for the same person. So again, thank you guys for being with us. And like I said, we'll definitely talk with you soon, brother and sister.
Okay.
We love y'all.
We love you guys. Give all the kids a hug for me.
Absolutely. Love you guys too.
Opportunity.
Absolutely. Tell them boys we said, hey, I know Kyler was strolling by a while ago, but tell Nathaniel we said hello and we love them too.
We will.
All right,
guys. Y'all have a good night.